Welcome to an at-home edition of the Ravens Rundown, powered by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. Appreciate you joining us. It's my off day, but there's so much Baltimore Ravens training camp news and rumors to get to that we didn't want to wait till we got back in studio next week to catch you up to speed on everything that's going on. You have questions. I have answers. We'll get right to them in just a moment. But if you want to see more Ravens content like this, even on our off days, at home, go ahead and like today's video if you want us to do this more often. And if we get a good enough response, we certainly will. Let's go ahead and start in the mailbag. Our first question this week comes from Shans. Shans wants to know, is OBJ coming? Now, we've talked about this for a little while now, about the idea of the Baltimore Ravens adding another receiver to this wide receiving core. And when you look at this group, it's a very young group. Rashad Bateman's got the most experience of the returning wide receivers. But beyond that, there's some question marks. There's sure some talent there, but unproven talent at that. Now, Odell Beckham, here's Odell's situation. He's coming off the ACL tear that he tore in the Super Bowl. And I think prior to when Odell signed with the Los Angeles Rams last year, after he moved on from the Cleveland Browns, there was question marks about OBJ's character, how good of a teammate he was, with the back and forth of how things went with Baker Mayfield. But the truth of the matter is that when he ultimately joined the Los Angeles Rams last year, that he elevated that offense, that they took another step up with him there, and that he was a pivotal part of them winning the Super Bowl. They would not have won that Super Bowl without him, quite frankly. So, with that said, I like OBJ at this point in his career. You're not asking him to be a number one receiver anymore. I would be fine with them bringing in OBJ. In fact, I would recommend them signing Odell Beckham Jr. personally. What say you guys? Our pinned comment today. Will the Ravens sign Odell Beckham Jr.? Let me know in the comment section if you think it's going to happen. Type Y for yes. If not, type in for no. Let me know in the comment section one way or the other. Will the Ravens sign OBJ? Type Y for yes. Type in for no. Bobby wants to know, what's with all of the Ravens' injuries right now? Well, Bobby, that's a good question. And here's where things stack up. We knew this team was pretty banged up entering camp as is, with J.K. Dobbins coming off off-season surgery, and Gus Edwards as well, and Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters, and the list goes on and on. But since then, since camp has started, we've seen some guys get banged up. Now, here's what we have so far with the latest out of camp. Vince Biegel, he's out for the year. He's done. It sucks for him, but the flip side for the Ravens is that he was a borderline 53-man roster player. Whether he was going to make it or not, now this decision just got easier for the Ravens. So, while it's not good news for Vince, and you feel for the guy, this isn't the end of the world for the Ravens that Vince Biegel's out. Now, Tyler Linderbaum looks like he's going to be out about 1 to 2 weeks with his foot injury. Or heard John Harbaugh say that he thinks he's going to be okay, that he's going to be just fine, but they're going to be cautious there. Kyle Hamilton looks fine at this point. And Rashad Bateman, although that he missed practice on Saturday, they were more so just being cautious with him. He appears to be okay as well. So, not time to be concerned yet, but we have seen the Ravens be pretty physical, it seems, so far at this point, with a week and a half into training camp where things are at right now. But that's where the injury front stands for the Ravens for the time being. The depth chart was released. Joe wants to know, any surprises? A couple things stand out. James Washington, who I've been very high of, who I've spoken a lot about here on this channel, he was listed as the number 3 receiver right now. Very interesting, right? I told you, I really like James Washington. He's got potential. Reminds me of Nate Washington when we saw him a few years ago, former Steeler and Tennessee Titan. To me, he could be that guy, a very good possession receiver and just what the Ravens need. So I like James Washington, and that to me stood out that he was that number 3 receiver. He'll contend with James Prochet and company for those receiving spots, but James Washington was noticeable at that number 3 spot. Also, Kyle Hamilton not starting over Chuck Clark. The starting safeties right now are Chuck Clark and Marcus Williams, with Kyle Hamilton coming off the bench. You spent a high pick on Kyle Hamilton. He's your future. But as of right now, it seems like the Ravens are still invested into Chuck Clark for the time being. Now, granted, Kyle Hamilton's dealt with some injuries, but he's not being just handed this job right now. So that, to me, is something to watch for, is if Kyle Hamilton will work his way into that lineup soon, and if the Ravens will move on from Chuck Clark. That's been talked about a lot over the last couple of months, ever since they brought in Kyle Hamilton and Marcus Williams. What does the future of Chuck Clark look like, if they will hold on to him or not? If they find a trade partner for him. But for the time being, Kyle Hamilton not starting, Chuck Clark is. So will we see Kyle Hamilton start week 1 for the Baltimore Ravens? If so, here's our question. Kyle Hamilton will start week 1. Type T for true, type F for false. Let me know in the comment section if we will see Kyle Hamilton start for the Ravens week 1. If that is true, type T for true. If that is false, type F for false, that Kyle Hamilton will start week 1 for the Baltimore Ravens. Next question from the inbox comes from Judy. Will Calais Campbell retire after this year? Well, he's 35 years old now, and he's had a very good career at this point. And he was on the NFL Network yesterday, and here's what he had to say. I don't know if there's anything left after that, talking about this year, but I'm going to leave it all on the field, empty the tank, and when it's all said and done after this year, I'll reconvene in the offseason to see where I'm at. But right now, I'm preparing like this is my last year, so I'm going to give it everything I have. That sounds like a guy that's retiring at the end of the year, personally. Look, Calais Campbell, with those words there, that sounds like a man that is going into this year with the mindset this is it for him at this point. Now, we've seen, look, we all thought Tom Brady was retired back in February, and 40 days later he came back. So while Calais Campbell might think that right now, who knows if he's going to be back next year at this point. So I like Calais Campbell. He's had a very good career. Hopefully we get to see him with this Ravens uniform for a while. But I would lean towards that, yes, that we do see Calais Campbell retire after this year. But we'll see how things go this year as far as I'm concerned. We're bringing you to this show even on my off day at home, and so with that, we want you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. The dedication around here, even on my off days, still bringing you Ravens content. We're going to be back in the studio next week and have all the fancy graphics and all that, but subscribe now so you never miss a moment of what we're doing here on the Ravens Rundown and get all the latest Ravens news and rumors and breaking news, and turn on those notifications as well, so you're the first to know exactly what's going on with your Baltimore Ravens. It's the Baltimore Ravens Rundown, powered by Chat Sports. Subscribe now, youtube.com/RavensTV. Turn on notifications as well so you never miss a moment. youtube.com/RavensTV. Final question in the inbox. This comes from Jay. Jay wants to know, offensive coordinator after Greg Roman is fired, Jon Gruden? I wonder, was that Jay Gruden sending in the question, trying to get his brother a job here? I don't think Greg Roman's getting fired, personally. I like Greg Roman. I know that he gets a lot of hate from Ravens fans with the way that they run this offense, but they're making changes. We've heard Greg Roman say that this offense is going to be different to an extent, comparably to what we've seen over the last few years, that they are going to expand the horizons a bit for Lamar Jackson, that they are going to do more things that they haven't done before. And I think he's creative enough that things are going to be fine, that everything's going to work out okay for Greg Roman in this offense. I'm a believer. I think that Greg Roman is good enough to be a head coach in the National Football League. I don't think in fact, I'll say this much. Greg Roman is more likely to get a head coaching job next year than I think he is to get fired personally. Now, the idea of Jon Gruden coming in, look, Jon Gruden I don't think is ever working in the NFL ever again. Jon Gruden was a good coach Not a great coach, very good commentator, but there was way too much backlash with everything that went on with those emails and all that went down there. We're not going to see Jon Gruden back, and I don't think his ego wants to be a coordinator for anybody for that matter. So with that said, I think Jon Gruden, no chance. I don't think Greg Roman's getting fired either personally. But Jay, thanks for the question there. If you've made it to the end of today's video, we thank you. You are a real one. And so with that, show yourselves out. Show some love. Type real one in the comments section if you're a real one. And we appreciate you joining us. Back in studio next week with all the latest Baltimore Ravens news and rumors. You will not want to miss a moment of it. Turn on those notifications so you never miss an episode. Subscribe now, youtube.com/RavensTV, and we'll see you next time right here on the Ravens Rundown, powered by Chat Sports. Give me a follow on Twitter at Tyler Jones Live, and we'll see you next time. Appreciate you joining us.